The MP40 is a weapon that has become the shadow of the Wehrmacht, a symbol of the Blitzkrieg, and one of the most recognizable submachine guns in history. War isn't just about front lines, generals, tanks, and operational maps. War is about the small details that, in the hands of tens of thousands of soldiers, become not just tools, but reflections of an era. One such symbol is the MP40, a submachine gun that has gone down in history as the weapon of German assault groups, paratroopers, tank crews, and squad leaders. In almost every frame of a newsreel, whether a German soldier runs through a ruined street, a paratrooper jumps from a Junkers, or a scout hides in a trench, an MP40 is at his side. It has become so recognizable that even decades later, its silhouette is most often associated with the weaponry of the Third Reich. But the paradox is that the MP40 itself was never conceived as a superweapon. It wasn't the most powerful, the fastest firing, or the most technologically advanced. It became a legend due to the perfect combination of circumstances, engineering solutions, and military doctrine. It was a weapon for a new kind of war-fast, mobile, and unexpected, where close combat and reaction speed became more important than long-range accuracy. The Wehrmacht was looking for a tool for assaults, urban warfare, sabotage, tank crews, and officers one that was lightweight, reliable, and convenient. And the MP40 was the answer. To understand why the MP40 has become iconic, we need to transport ourselves back to the late 1930s. Europe was on the brink of disaster. Germany was rapidly arming itself, introducing cutting-edge technology and a new tactic, the Blitzkrieg. Engines roared, tank wedges prepared to attack, and infantry had to keep up with the armor. At this point it became clear, classic rifles with long barrels and 5-round magazines were unsuitable for rapid operations. A compact assault rifle capable of firing bursts at short ranges was needed. Prototypes already existed, the MP18, MP28, MP34, but they were heavy, expensive, and difficult to manufacture. The MP40 was revolutionary thanks to its simplicity. Stamped parts, minimal complex operations, a comfortable folding grip, a 32-round magazine, and the ability to fire in bursts. All of this made it the ideal weapon for close combat. Not the most perfect, not the most powerful, but extremely practical. When World War II began in September 1939, the MP40 was already in service with Germany's elite units. However, it later became a mass symbol, so much so that the Allies often overestimated its prevalence. Chronicles, propaganda, and films portrayed the MP40 as every German soldier's machine gun, though in reality, far from everyone received one. Nevertheless, it was the MP40 that became the face of the German soldier. It was wielded by paratroopers during the capture of Belgian forts, and it resounded in the street battles of Warsaw, in French cities, at Stalingrad, and in all the major clashes of the Eastern Front. The MP40 became a tool that wrote history, not only in the hands of experienced soldiers but also of young recruits, who sometimes had no other weapon than this compact submachine gun. When engineers Friedrich Blum and Heinrich Vollmer began developing a new submachine gun, they weren't aiming to create a legend. Their goal was pragmatic, to create a weapon that would be cheaper, more technologically advanced, and simpler than anything Germany had used before. The prototype was the MP38, the symbol of the Wehrmacht's parachute units and special forces. The MP38 was accurate and reliable, but too expensive. Its frame required extensive milling, and production took longer than the demands of the looming war allowed. In 1940, the German army received a modernized version, the MP40, created using mass-produced stamped parts. This marked a key technological breakthrough. For the first time in Germany, large-scale weapons were produced using stamping rather than milling. This allowed for increased production, faster assembly, and lower costs. The MP40 became an early example of the industrial arms revolution. At first glance, the MP40 looked unusual. Its almost entirely metal body, the absence of wooden parts, except for the plastic forend, folding stock, and distinctive shape, created the image of a weapon of the future. Compared to the wooden carbines of the Allies, the MP40 looked futuristic. Main characteristics: caliber, 9x19 parabellum, rate of fire, 550 rounds, MIN, length, 833 mm with folded stock, 630 mm, Weight, 3.97 kilograms. Magazine, 32 rounds. Fire, automatic only. While the MP40 did not have a single fire mode, its low rate of fire allowed a skilled shooter to control short bursts. One of the MP40's main advantages was its smooth recoil. Its massive, straight recoil bolt and well-designed geometry made it easier to fire than many submachine guns of the time. This allowed even new recruits to handle a weapon for the first time to maintain consistent fire. It sounds simple, but it was a masterpiece of engineering. The stock folded in one motion, didn't interfere with transport, and was convenient for transport, especially in tanks and armored vehicles. Tankers loved the MP40 precisely for its compactness. It was the first mass-produced German submachine gun to use plastic as its standard material. Its lightness, ease of use, and energy efficiency made the MP40 a modern weapon ahead of its time. The MP40's legendary status doesn't mean it was perfect. It had several serious flaws, rarely mentioned in movies, but well known to frontline soldiers. The magazine's design was double-stack, but the feed exited in a single row. This made the magazine extremely sensitive to contamination. The slightest dust or dirt would cause the feed to jam. This became a critical issue in the conditions of the Eastern Front. The Germans even joked, "If you want an MP40 to misfire, just breathe on the magazine." The MP40's effective range was 120 meters. Against the Soviet Union, which often employed long-range fire tactics, this was insufficient. The metal folding stock could bend if a soldier fell or slammed the weapon into an obstacle. Many soldiers used the MP40 without a stock, which further reduced accuracy. The 9.19 ammunition was ideal for urban combat, but it lost its effectiveness against winter uniforms, greatcoats, padded jackets, or light cover. Despite its shortcomings, the MP40 became an indispensable tool for the Wehrmacht. It perfectly fit into the German doctrine of mobile offensives and urban operations. The Germans developed special assault units armed with the MP40. Their mission was break through the defense, clear the trenches, fight in the trenches, attack buildings, act in street battles. The MP40 was created for precisely these tasks. MP40 in combat, real episodes. Polish campaign, 1939. The MP40 was used by paratroopers and breakthrough groups to capture bridges and fortifications. France, 1940. French soldiers encountered the MP40 in close combat for the first time and were shocked by the compactness and rate of fire of the German weapon. USSR, 1941-1945. Here, the MP40 met its main opponent, the PPSH-41. The comparison of these two submachine guns is one of the most debated in military history. The PPSH had the advantage in fire rate and range, while the MP40 had the advantage in recoil control. On the Eastern Front, the MP40 found itself in a unique situation. For the first time, the German submachine gun encountered a weapon designed with a completely different logic. The PPSH-41 was crude, noisy, extremely rapid fire, and nearly indestructible. Its rate of fire exceeded 900 rounds per minute, and its effective range was significantly greater than that of the MP40. German soldiers quickly realized the difference. In close combat, especially in buildings and trenches, the MP40 allowed for more precise burst control and conserved ammunition. However, in freezing conditions, mud and snow, the Soviet PPSH often proved more reliable. This led to a paradoxical situation. German soldiers often picked up PPSHs on the battlefield and used them against their former owners, sometimes even converting them to 9x19 mm. This experience revealed the main limitation of the MP40. It was ideal for trained assault groups, but less suited to a mass army in a total war. Despite its limitations, the MP40 was widely used by elite units, Fallschirmjäger, paratroopers, officers and non-commissioned officers, tankers, scouts and sabotage groups. For them, compactness, controllability and convenience were more important than range. The MP40 became the standard weapon for squad leaders, which is why it appears so frequently in photographs and newsreels. A commander with an MP40 looked modern, mobile and impressive, which enhanced his image in propaganda. A huge role in the MP40's cult status. In films about World War II, the MP40 was most often seen in the hands of German soldiers, even in situations where, historically, they would have been armed with Kar 98K carbines. The reasons are simple. The MP40 is instantly recognizable, looks more aggressive than a rifle, visually associated with automatic fire, easy to read in the frame. Thus, the MP40 became a visual symbol of the enemy, and its image became entrenched in the public consciousness much more strongly than its actual distribution among the troops. From 1940 to 1945, over 1 million MP40s were produced. While these were impressive numbers for Germany, they were still insufficient to fully rearm its infantry. The Kar 98K remained the Wehrmacht's primary rifle. Nevertheless, the MP40 became one of the first examples of the successful mass use of stamped parts, which influenced the entire subsequent arms industry, both in Germany and abroad. The MP40 didn't disappear after Germany's surrender. Huge quantities of the weapon ended up in Allied warehouses and in the hands of the victors. It was used in Eastern European countries, in Yugoslavia, in Israel, in the early years of the state's existence, in colonial conflicts, in post-war partisan movements. Several countries even produced their own versions or copies of the MP40, and its design influenced the development of submachine guns in the post-war period. The MP40 wasn't a perfect weapon, but it was a milestone. Its influence can be seen in development of stamped structures, simplification of production, transition to more compact weapons, formation of close combat doctrine. Without the MP40, many of the solutions that later found their way into the STG-44 and then into post-war assault rifles would not have existed. The MP40 didn't become a legend because it was the best. It became a legend because it was in the right hands at the right time, in the right war. It became a reflection of the tactics, engineering, and ideology of its time. This is the weapon of the Blitzkrieg, the weapon of assault groups, the weapon of commanders, and that's why its silhouette still instantly evokes images of Wehrmacht soldiers. The story of the MP40 is the story of how a weapon can transcend its actual role on the battlefield and become a symbol of an entire era. While never a standard infantry weapon for the Wehrmacht, the submachine gun became, in the minds of millions, the machine gun of the German soldier. It's a rare case where visual imagery, propaganda, and cinematography proved more powerful than dry statistics. The MP40 didn't win the war. It wasn't the decisive factor at Moscow, Stalingrad, or Normandy, but it did reflect the philosophy of Blitzkrieg: mobile, aggressive, fast-paced warfare where seconds, surprise, and control of close quarters were decisive. That's why it was most often issued to those operating at the front: officers, assault groups, paratroopers, tank crews, and scouts, those who needed a weapon that was always at hand. Over time, many myths arose around the MP40. It was called the ideal assault rifle, the best submachine gun of the war, the Wehrmacht's all-purpose weapon. The reality was more complex. The MP40 had serious drawbacks: a magazine sensitive to dirt, limited range, and a fragile stock. In the harsh conditions of the Eastern Front, it often lost out to simpler and cruder models like the PPSH-41, and yet it remained in demand not as a universal weapon, but as a specialized tool for close combat. After the war, the MP40 didn't disappear. It found its way into the warehouses of the victors, fought in local conflicts, and was used by partisans, security forces, and police forces. It could be found in Yugoslavia, the Middle East, and Africa. Even in the post-war world, the MP40 continued to live on, proving that successful engineering solutions don't die with nations. But the main reason the MP40 has endured in history goes beyond purely military analysis. This weapon has become part of the cultural code. In films, television, and video games, the MP40 has become a visual symbol of the enemy of World War II. Its recognizable silhouette, distinctive folding stock, and 32-round magazine are instantly recognizable to viewers. Even those unfamiliar with weapons history unmistakably recognize the MP40 as a German assault rifle. This effect has persisted for decades. In films, German soldiers are almost always armed with MP40s, even though historically they should be carrying Kar 98K carbines. The reason is simple: the MP40 looks dynamic, dangerous, and modern. It visually conveys a sense of threat better than a long rifle. Thus, the weapon became a cinematic archetype. From an engineering perspective, the MP40 also left a significant mark. It was one of the first mass-produced weapons to make extensive use of stamping, plastic, and simplified technological solutions. This approach influenced the subsequent development of small arms, including the creation of the STG-44 and post-war projects in various countries. The MP40 demonstrated that a weapon could be simple, technologically advanced, and effective at the same time, even if not universally applicable. Today, the MP40 is primarily a historical object. It is studied by collectors, reenactors, and historians. It remains popular among military history buffs, and replicas continue to be produced for the civilian market. But most importantly, it remains a symbol of a war in which technology, ideology, and propaganda intertwined. The MP40 is more than just a submachine gun. It's the shadow of a Wehrmacht soldier on film. It's the sound of a short burst of fire in a narrow corridor. It's a weapon that has become part of the visual memory of the 20th century. And that's why, decades after the end of World War II, the MP40 lives on not on the battlefield, but in history.